Good morning, world. I am Judy, your web based therapist, making therapy accessible and convenient for our clients in Florida and New York, and of course, sharing information worldwide. Today, I'd like to take a moment and talk about 5 misconceptions. Actually, I don't even want to say misconceptions or even dignify those as myths. They're just 5 things that some people believe about ADHD that are just not true. But before I get into that, I want to take a quick moment and say if you are subscribed, thank you so very much for being a part of our world. And if you are not yet subscribed, please click the subscribe button below so that you can become a part of our wonderful world. And remember to tick the bell so that you are notified when I post new videos so that you don't miss anything. And of course, if you'd like to purchase 1 or 3 of my books, there's also a link below that will take you to a website that shows you all your different options of places where you can get 1 or 3 of my books. Okay, let me get back to it. 5 things that some people believe about ADHD that are just not true. First, the idea that it's not a real disorder. I understand that there are many people who have difficulty accepting or believing an ailment or a disorder that they cannot visually, physically see. But that just because you can't see it does not mean that someone else does not is not experiencing it. ADHD is a biological disorder. It's something that is caused by a lower level of norepinephrine and dopamine in the brain, and it impacts executive functioning and things like the person's ability to pay attention, to stay focused on things, the person's ability to do things like, hey, follow and maintain a calendar. Those types of things are impacted um by ADHD. So it, the idea that it is not a real disorder, that is just hurtful, and I wish people would just stop. Second, ADHD is a childhood issue. Actually, no, it's not. It, a lot of especially because it is a biological disorder, just because the person grows up does not mean that now they are suddenly fully everything is working just as it should have been, that it should have been when they were a child. No, they still have that same lower level of norepinephrine, that same dopamine deficit. They still have the same issues. It's just that sometimes with adults, the ADHD may not manifest the same way that it does in children. And as adults, people start qualifying their behaviors as different, more adult things like irresponsibility and things like that. But as um the child with ADHD grows up, they become an adult who still has ADHD. So ADHD is not a childhood thing or a childhood disorder, or and people don't outgrow it. People grow up with it. They just learn as they're growing up. They learn how to manage it. They develop skills, they develop systems that help them manage the ADHD symptoms to allow them to function as adults, um, yeah, to function more effectively as adults. 3, that people with ADHD or ADD are somehow less intelligent or less capable. People with ADHD are some of the most brilliant people you will meet. They have um they have the ability to think outside the box. They get the greatest ideas. They're always in search of solutions. And again, if you're in a field or in a position where you need those solutions, people with ADHD are definitely who you want on your team, because they will come up with the wildest, the most out of the box solutions that a lot of times our non ADHD brains can't even comprehend until they bring it up and say, hey, yeah, this is possible and this is how it is possible. They are highly intelligent. They are very creative. They have a lot to offer. It's just that a lot of times, because of their ADHD, of the symptoms of their ADHD, it can become difficult for them to share that, or for them to follow through with an idea, with a project enough long enough for someone else to see the results and someone else to see the benefits. But people with ADHD are absolutely in no way less intelligent or less capable than any person you will ever meet. In fact, many of them are smarter than the rest of us. Or people with ADHD are somehow irresponsible or lazy. No, they are struggling. They're probably some of the hardest working people you know, but you don't see the results because this if their ADHD is not fully managed, a lot of times it's like the person is spending a whole lot of time catch trying running at full speed just trying to catch up, but it just doesn't seem that they ever do catch up unless they have a system in place to help them manage their ADHD. No, they are in no way lazy. They are in no way irresponsible. They're just people who are struggling. They're just people who are experiencing difficulty and people who need support and help from those around them. People who need support from their community and the people who love them and the people who are supposed to be, your brother's keeper. Finally, parents who have ADHD will pass it on to their children. Not quite. A lot of times, if a parent has ADHD and their ADHD is not managed, some of the behaviors can be learned by their child. It becomes more of a nurture than a nature because it's not necessarily that the child will develop ADHD, is that if the parent is always struggling, if the parent has not figured out how to create the systems to help them function more effectively, then the child could grow up in that same space of always doing engaging in some of the same behaviors of always being behind the eight ball, of always trying to catch up, of always not being fully there. But it's not necessarily that the child has ADHD, it's that the child has not learned the skills to function. But it's not necessarily the ADHD, it's just that they learn the behaviors, the struggling behaviors of a person with ADHD that is not managed. Okay, let me do a quick recap first. It's not. ADHD is a real disorder. It is a biological disorder. It is, and there's science behind it too. ADHD is not a childhood issues. Children with ADHD grow up to be adults with ADHD. Three, people with ADHD are some of the most intelligent people and some of the most capable and most dedicated people that you will know. And four, people with ADHD are in no way irresponsible or lazy. They're some of the hardest working people that you know. They're some of the most dedicated people that you know. It's just that sometimes their ADHD get in the way of the results showing through. And finally, parents who have ADHD don't necessarily pass their ADHD down to their children, but because of the children are learning behaviors in the home from their parents. If a parent has ADHD that is not managed, sometimes a child can pick up some of those same behaviors that the parents or that they grow up witnessing in the home. But it's not necessarily that they have ADHD, it's more of a nurture than a nature. As always, if you or someone you know happens to be going through something that's more than you can handle, please remember that there are professionals like myself who are available, able, and willing to help, and are even providing remote services who can assist with whatever you may have going on. So please figure out who those people are in your community so that if you need the help, you can reach out and get the help that you need. And that is all we have for today. Good morning, world. Have an awesome day.